In this video, we're going to look into special cases of artificial lighting setup in V-Ray. It all works the same way as in Corona. We'll be going through the same steps and the same methods. If you want to find out how to set up artificial lighting in Corona, go ahead and watch the identical video for Corona. Here's one major rule I'd like to focus on before we begin. Before setting up artificial lights, such as wall lamps, point lamps, and so on, you need to set up environment light that comes from the window. It doesn't matter if you have day lighting or blue hour lighting. If it's after sunset, the light will be dimmer. It will have a blue shade. Once you've done that, you can proceed to set up ceiling lamps, wall lamps, what have you. Otherwise, you'll end up making a bunch of mistakes, especially if you're still a newbie. Okay, let's get started. And we'll start with ceiling lighting. Here's one thing you need to know to make your render faster and to reduce noise. You need to know the difference between the two types of light. Now let me explain. Suppose we have a ceiling lamp. On the one hand, it can be lit up on its own. On the other hand, it can illuminate the interior. When setting up ceiling lighting, we'll have to use fake lights. First, we need to create a light source to light up the ceiling lamp to make it look realistic, and then we're going to illuminate the room with the lamp. Alright, so let's go. We need to create several V-Ray lights. But first, let's lock this camera view so that the interactive render doesn't change when we switch between viewports. Next, we go to the top view and create light sources the size of real-life bulbs. We click V-Ray Light and select the sphere type. Next, we go ahead and set the temperature to 4000. Let's leave the multiplier as it is. I don't know yet what it should be. Okay, so now we arrange the lights. I'm not sure where exactly the lights should go in a lamp model like this, so I'm just going to do it intuitively. It makes sense to use the region tool so that we don't have to update the entire render. When arranging the lights, we're using the isolate selection mode. Let's create 5 lights. To clone them, we can use an array tool, or we can shift the pivot to the center of the lamp and copy the lights by rotation. So I'm just going to create copies manually, and I just wanted to pay your attention to this. Many 3D lamp models come with light sources. So my advice is to edit 3D models in a separate scene and check them for light sources. If a model has a light source, don't hesitate to delete it. Otherwise, that light will give you a lot of trouble and create noise. So make sure you always add light sources yourself. This way you will know that everything works the way it should. Okay, so we've arranged our lights. The lamp is now slightly illuminated. And now we can set up the brightness. Let's increase multiplier by 100 times and see the effect. The lamp is now shining more brightly. It illuminates the ceiling. But if we'll leave it like this, your render will take forever to complete. You'll end up with a big amount of noise, especially if you set up the brightness high to illuminate the entire interior. So I'll check invisible box to make our light sources invisible. The lamp looks pretty good. Now let's do a little trick. We click the exclude button and add the lamp to the list. But first, let's see what it's called. It's called C1, okay? So go ahead and find C1, add it to exclude, and then switch to include. Okay, so now the only object illuminated by the lights is the lamp and nothing else. So this trick will save us render time. But if we also need to illuminate the interior with our lamp, we'll have to add a fake light. So we select V-Ray light. It has the same temperature as our small lights. And next, we make our fake light the size of the lamp. Now, of course, you can edit its parameters if necessary. If you want to achieve a harder or, on the contrary, a softer light, go ahead and change the radius of your fake light. Next, we set the temperature. Then we make our light invisible. And now we need to exclude the lamp from our fake light. We find C1 and add it to the exclude list. And now the fake light illuminates everything but the lamp. We can see that the light is currently too bright for a day render. So we need to decrease the multiplier to 1. And if you ask me, I wouldn't turn on the lamp at all in a day render. Although sometimes the client may ask you to turn on the lights, or you may need to show them how they work. And in that case, you can use a fake light. It will light up without illuminating the interior. And the interior must be illuminated only when it's getting dark outside and you have mixed lighting. So keep that in mind. So now you know how to set up ceiling lighting, and next on our list is cornice lighting and V-Ray. One common mistake here is using self-illumination material, V-Ray light MTL, to imitate cornice lighting. While it's okay to use it in general, it creates plenty of noise, which increases your render time. And that's why I recommend using light sources such as V-Ray lights. It's a good way to imitate LED lights behind the cornice. Now, there's nothing tricky about it. All we do is we create a rectangular V-Ray light, and we select the plane shape. Make it long and narrow enough, and place it behind the cornice. Now pay attention to this. The light must shine not onto the cornice, but upwards, onto the ceiling. All right? So here we already have some light. Now let's set it up. The width is 2 centimeters. The temperature is 400 kelvins. Let's give it a warm color. The light is too bright. Let's bring the multiplier down to 5, for example. There are two ways to direct the light at this point. If you direct it onto the wall, you'll get a softer effect. Or you can direct it onto the ceiling and further towards the center of the room. Here's one more thing. To get a harder light, we can adjust the parameter called directionality. So let's make it 0.5, for example, and you'll see that we've achieved a harder gradient. I wouldn't direct the cornice light onto the wall, because this will create multiple secondary bounces of light, which means additional noise. So the more your light is directed towards the camera, and the less it bounces off objects, the less noise you're going to have in your scene. So we check the invisible box to make our light invisible to the camera. And that was it. By only setting up the brightness and temperature, we've got this beautiful cornice lighting. Now let's see how to set up wall lighting. It's pretty much the same. So we need to add a 3D light model that looks like a real life lamp. Make sure to check if your selected lamp model has a light source inside. If it does, I always recommend that you delete it. Also, you can delete the bulb model as well. You don't need that. And when setting up wall lighting, we need to change translucency of a lampshade material. And the thing is that the light must go through the lampshade material and slightly illuminate the wall. And by the way, if a ceiling lamp has lampshades like this one, its lighting setup process will be absolutely the same. All right? Okay, so the first thing we do is we create a sphere-shaped V-ray light, and we place it inside a lamp, where the bulb should be. The lamp has lit up, and now we need to adjust its brightness and color. Let's set the temperature to 3000 to create a warm light. It's a bit too dim though. Let's increase the multiplier to 100. (200 even). Alright, good. Now the softness of light. We can adjust it by changing the diameter of the light source. Don't forget to make the light invisible to the camera. And let's switch to lumens. Now we need to change the radius. And the thing about the radius is that the smaller it is, the harder the light. So let's make it 0.5. And this way we get a hard, sharp light. With a radius at 3 or 4, we get a softer light. So that's quite easy. Now let's focus on translucency. The light is reflected from the inner side of the lampshade and then bounces off multiple times, creating excessive noise. And we can change translucency of the lampshade by editing its material. So I'll open Material Editor window and create V-Ray MTL. And that will be the base material of our lampshade. We'll give it a yellowish kind of color. And next we add V-Ray two-sided MTL. Since it's a fabric, it must be slightly translucent. We'll link V-Ray MTL to the front material slot and assign V-Ray two-sided MTL to the lampshade. Now, notice that here we have a group inside a group. It's not very convenient to work with, but this is what our lampshade looks like at the moment. We can adjust its translucency through a parameter called translucency, as surprising as it may be. So we change the translucency of our two-sided material, and if we make it darker, the lampshade will be letting less light through. The closer to white, the more translucent the lampshade. Now let's use a fake material. So we'll create V-Ray override MTL. We'll link V-Ray two-sided MTL to the base material slot. Our two-sided material is getting more and more complex, as you can see. And next, we assign V-Ray override MTL to the lampshade. We add a transparent V-Ray MTL and link it to the global illumination slot. And we do this to be able to fine adjust the translucency of the lampshade and secondary bounces of light. If I make the material black, it will stop being translucent and there will be less noise. It will no longer let the light through. So let's assign a black and white map to our material. So we go to the General tab and pick, for example, the output map. We'll link it to the opacity slot and set the output amount to 0.5. The material becomes translucent for global illumination. As you can see, we don't even have to create gradients, additional maps, and things like that. We've achieved beautiful gradient and the material is letting some of the light through. If we reduce output amount to 0.1, the material will turn translucent. See? So this way we've got a nice looking wall lamp. By adjusting the translucency of V-Ray two-sided MTL and the opacity of GI material and V-Ray override MTL, we can change the translucency of the lampshade material. Now, here's another life hack. If you don't have enough light in your interior, you can copy this light source, exclude the wall lamp from it, and use it to illuminate the interior. Now, I consider it a fake. Wall lamps mostly serve to create beautiful light shadow patterns on the walls. Okay, so that was it on wall lamps, and now let's look into point lighting setup in V-Ray. Now it has some differences to Corona. In Corona, for example, we use disc lights. But V-Ray has a special type of lights. It's called V-Ray IES. In Corona, we can assign an IES map to a disc light. And you can't do that in V-Ray. To create a beautiful light shadow pattern using an IES map, we need to select V-Ray IES. We add it here, where the point lamp is, and we put it under the lamp. And next we need to add an IES map. Additional materials to this course contain a small library of IES files. You can go ahead and pick a light that fits your needs. For this matter, I'll pick T11. So we go to V-Ray IES settings. There's a parameter called IES file. Click these three dots, enter the path to the folder, and select T11. So we can see the light, although it's not bright enough. So we need to adjust it a little. We do this the same way as we do it in Corona. We can select the color directly, or we can adjust the temperature. So let's make it 3000 kelvins. The IES light has lit up, but we can't see a clear light shadow pattern yet. Let's make it brighter, about 4000 lumens. We can see strong secondary bounces off the floor. When you use point lights in the day render, make sure to do that wisely. If you want to achieve a more contrasting pattern from an IES file, you can direct it onto the wall like this. So in that case, most of the light will be shining on the walls and not on the floor. And you won't have to raise the IES brightness to get a well-pronounced pattern. Sometimes we can just move the IES closer to the wall, leaving the lamp behind, and this gives us a clearer pattern, and we can even lower the brightness. So remember that in a day render, artificial lights should not be too bright. They should provide accent lighting without affecting the overall lighting in the scene. With mixed lighting, it's another thing. In that case, the ratio of environment light and artificial light should be at about 1:1. Instead of an IES file, you can use disk-shaped V-Ray light. You'll need to set up its directionality. The light will be shining downwards, but without creating a pattern like this. Actually, I prefer using a disk instead of an IES file. Picking an IES file with the right pattern can be tricky. We only use IES files when we need to create some pattern on the wall. And I personally don't have to do that very often. Okay, and so the last thing I'd like to address is that if you want to light up a bulb inside your point lamp, you should use another fake light. So we create a spherical V-Ray light and place it inside the lampshade. The light illuminates the lampshade from the inside. So let's name it C2. And then you need to exclude from this light source all objects except for the bulb. Your light source must only illuminate the bulb model, because otherwise you'll end up with too much bright light and noise. Okay, so that was it on artificial lighting setup in V-Ray. Hopefully this made sense. I wish you good luck, and we'll see you in the next lesson.